It is August, 1177. Under the burning sky of the eastern Mediterranean, the harbor of Acre stirs with movement. Ships crowd the water, standards snap in the wind, armor glints, and among the stone towers and shaded colonnades of the city, the kingdom of Jerusalem gathers its strength, perhaps for the last time. Philip of Alsace has arrived. The Count of Flanders steps onto the quay not as a conqueror, but as a man of immense consequence. He is cousin to the King of Jerusalem, a veteran noble of the Latin West, and, crucially, he has come with expectations. Offshore, the sea itself seems to promise victory. Anchored just beyond the harbor lies an armada of more than 150 galleys from the East Roman Empire, their hulls riding the blue like an iron horizon. This fleet has a purpose. Together with the army of Jerusalem, it is meant to carry Christendom south, across the Sinai, into Egypt. The prize is immense. Egypt is the economic heart of Saladin's power, the foundation of his armies, the key to breaking Muslim dominance in the region. A successful strike there would change the balance of the Crusades overnight. The greatest campaign since the First Crusade waits only for unity. But unity does not come. Inside the palace at Jerusalem, the reality is far less triumphant. The king who should be leading this endeavor is 16 years old and dying. Baldwin IV of Jerusalem is already infamous throughout the Near East. His leprosy, once a whispered concern, is now undeniable. His right arm is crippled. His body is racked not only by the disease that will eventually kill him, but also by recurring malarial fever. Even so, Baldwin still rules. He still commands, and for now, his mind remains sharp. Yet his condition raises a question no one can avoid. Who will rule when he no longer can? Baldwin wishes Philip of Alsace to take up the custodianship of the crown. It is a practical solution. Philip is family. He is powerful. He could stabilize the realm and lead its armies. But Philip refuses. He claims he has come only as a pilgrim, not as a regent, not as a king. Instead, he presses a different agenda. He seeks marriage into Baldwin's family, proposing matches with the king's sisters, Sibylla and Isabella. These negotiations drag on for weeks, then months. The court fractures under the strain. What should have been a single unified command instead dissolves into arguments over succession, marriage, and authority. While the Byzantine fleet waits, costly, vast, and idle, the Frankish elite turn inward. Every delay drains momentum. Every disagreement widens the cracks. Eventually, the moment passes. The invasion of Egypt is abandoned. The Roman galleys sail home. With them goes the greatest opportunity Christendom has had in generations. Philip of Alsace chooses to march north instead, joining Raymond of Tripoli and Bohemond of Antioch. Their aim is Harim, a fortified town near Antioch, whose capture might relieve pressure on the northern Crusader states. The decision is understandable, but costly. 100 knights and 2,000 infantry go with him. The militant holy orders go too. The best troops of the kingdom, the Templars and others, march northward, leaving only a thin screen in the south. Baldwin himself is too ill to join them. Jerusalem is left quiet, exposed. Back in the capital, the palace grows still. The absence of the army is palpable. Church bells toll through empty streets. The young king breathes heavily in his chambers. Around him, the kingdom waits, its strength dispersed, its leadership divided, its future uncertain. And beyond its borders, someone is watching.
Far to the south, beyond the sands of the Sinai, another ruler weighs his moment. Saladin has learned what has happened. By late October, word reaches him that the Roman fleet has sailed home, that the army of Jerusalem has marched north, that the south is weak, that the king is young, sick, and nearly alone. This is not a gamble. It is an opportunity. Saladin moves at once. He does not bring the full weight of his baggage. He leaves his heavy supplies behind at Al-Arish, choosing speed over comfort. His army will live off the land. Fast cavalry detachments range ahead, looting, foraging, seizing weakly defended towns, tearing open the countryside to feed the main host. This is a campaign designed to move faster than fear. By mid-November, the reports reach Jerusalem. A large Muslim force is advancing. Scouts speak of devastation, towns pillaged, fields stripped bare, roads made dangerous by roaming detachments. The Ayyubid army moves with purpose, its numbers unclear, its direction ominous. And for the first time, the full weight of what has been lost becomes clear. Jerusalem stands nearly alone. The army that should have defended it is hundreds of miles away. The coalition that should have crushed Saladin has collapsed under its own politics. The king who must now respond is 16 years old, crippled by disease and surrounded by uncertainty. To many, the outcome seems inevitable. Saladin believes the same. He does not see Baldwin as a threat, not yet. The boy king's force is small, his kingdom fractured, his strength spent. Saladin screens his rear with scouts, but his confidence is evident. Jerusalem, it seems, will soon lie open before him. But history is rarely shaped by what seems inevitable. And as the Ayyubid army pushes north, as panic begins to stir within the holy city, Baldwin IV does not surrender to fate. Instead, he prepares to ride. Power rarely announces itself with a shout. More often, it waits. By late October of 1177, the waiting is over. The Roman fleet, so vast, so expensive, so full of promise, has sailed north and vanished beyond the horizon. Its departure is more than symbolic. It confirms what Saladin has been watching for months. The coalition against him has fractured. The greatest threat to his power has dissolved without a blow struck. And now the south lies exposed. Saladin does not rush blindly. He has learned long ago that victory belongs not to the strongest army, but to the one that understands when to move. His intelligence network has done its work. Scouts, informants, travelers, each report sharpens the picture. The army of Jerusalem is divided. Its knights march far to the north. Its king is young. Its capital is vulnerable. For Saladin, this is not merely an opportunity. It is a strategic window, brief, fragile, and decisive. The order is given quickly. There will be no ponderous march, no endless supply train dragging behind the army like an anchor. Saladin chooses speed. He leaves his heavy baggage behind at Al-Arish, a calculated risk that signals his intent. This will not be a slow campaign of siege and consolidation. This will be a strike. The Ayyubid army advances north with a limited supply train, light enough to move swiftly through enemy territory. Ahead of the main body, fast cavalry detachments fan out like hunting dogs loosed from the leash. Their orders are simple and ruthless: raid, forage, and break resistance wherever it appears. Weakly defended towns fall first. Granaries are emptied, fields are stripped bare. The countryside begins to bleed. This is not random destruction. It is logistics by other means. Every village looted feeds the army. Every road made unsafe delays response. Every garrison bypassed spreads fear faster than fire ever could. Saladin understands something his enemies often forget. War is fought as much in the minds of civilians as it is on the battlefield. By mid-November, the scale of the invasion becomes clear. The full Ayyubid force may number as many as 26,000 men, though not all march together. Much of this strength is dispersed. Raiding detachments under subordinate commanders range deep into the kingdom of Jerusalem, creating chaos and confusion. The land itself becomes hostile to those who would defend it. At the heart of the army marches Saladin himself, leading the main body, somewhere between 10 and 15,000 troops. The composition of this force reflects the empire he has built. Light cavalry formed the bulk of the army, fast, flexible, deadly with bow and saber. Alongside them ride elite Mamluk bodyguards, hardened professionals whose loyalty is absolute. Well-trained Egyptian troops march in disciplined ranks, supported by veterans and auxiliaries drawn from Syria. This is not a horde, it is a system. Each part is designed to complement the others, speed, endurance, and striking power woven into a single instrument of war. As the army advances, the psychological effect compounds. Messengers reach Jerusalem with grim reports. Towns have been pillaged, roads are no longer safe. Ayyubid detachments have penetrated deep into the kingdom, moving faster than any force can track. The countryside that once fed the capital now sends nothing but fear. Within Jerusalem, panic begins to stir. Rumors spread faster than truth. Some claim Saladin's full host is already at the gates. Others whisper that the cross will soon be torn from the Temple Mount, that a new dawn will rise over the city, one not marked by church bells. Many seek refuge in the Tower of David. To them, the outcome seems preordained. How could a kingdom so divided withstand a force so vast? How could a sick teenager hope to stop a conqueror whose name already echoes from Egypt to Syria? Saladin, for his part, shares this confidence. He knows the first encounter with Baldwin has already gone in his favor. The Crusader king has shown himself cautious, even timid, withdrawing behind the walls of Ascalon when faced with overwhelming numbers. It is a sensible decision, but one Saladin interprets as weakness. The Sultan screens his rear with scouts, but his focus is forward. Jerusalem lies ahead. Between him and the holy city stand only scattered garrisons, a handful of river crossings, and a king he does not yet take seriously. The roads north are open, the bridges have fallen into his hands. Each mile brings him closer to a prize that would cement his legacy. Yet beneath this confidence lies a constraint. By leaving his heavy baggage behind, Saladin has bought speed at the cost of endurance. His army cannot linger indefinitely. It must keep moving. It must force a conclusion before supply shortages begin to bite. This urgency sharpens his decisions. When news arrives that Baldwin is moving again, assembling what forces he can, the Sultan does not dismiss it. The boy king's banner has been sighted. The Crusaders are gathering, slowly, imperfectly, but they are gathering. If Baldwin is allowed time, more men will come. So Saladin chooses to act. He will bring the enemy to battle before that happens. The logic is sound. The numbers favor him overwhelmingly. His army outmatches the Crusaders 3 to 5 times over. His cavalry dominates the open ground. His commanders are experienced. His men believe victory is already theirs. What he does not yet see, what no scout has yet reported, is that the very speed which carried him north has drawn him toward unfamiliar ground. Terrain he does not know, paths not marked on his maps, fields that will not behave as expected. For now, all Saladin sees is momentum. The enemy is weak, the moment is right.
The kingdom trembles. And so the Ayyubid army presses on, confident that history itself is bending in its favor, unaware that with every mile it moves closer not just to Jerusalem, but to Montgisard. History often remembers Baldwin IV as a symbol, a dying king, a tragic figure, a child marked for the grave. But symbols are rarely enough to explain survival. By the autumn of 1177, Baldwin is 16 years old and very much alive. His leprosy is no rumor. It has crippled his right arm, numbing flesh and bone. Yet the disease has not claimed his legs. It has not dulled his resolve. And contrary to later legend, he is not born on a litter like a relic of sanctity. He rides. From a young age, Baldwin has trained to command a horse with his knees alone. Being effectively one-handed, he learned to control mount and body through balance, pressure, and discipline. Pain is constant, weakness is familiar, but immobility is not an option. When word reaches Jerusalem that Saladin's army is advancing in force, Baldwin does not retreat behind walls and pray for rescue. He summons his kingdom. A call to arms goes out to every able-bodied Christian who can still bear a weapon. This is no grand levy, no mustering of banners over weeks or months. It is an emergency gathering, born of necessity and fear. The response is limited, but not empty. From the countryside, from towns still standing, men come. Knights answer first, as they always do. By the time Baldwin rides south toward Ascalon, he commands roughly 375 knights. Among them ride 80 Templars, elite warriors bound by oath and discipline. This is not an army meant for conquest. It is an army meant to buy time. The king does not ride alone. Great men of the realm gather around him. Balian of Ibelin, experienced and steady, rides with his brother, Baldwin II of Ramla, lords whose lands lie directly in the path of invasion. Reginald Grenier joins the host, as does Jocelyn III of Edessa, both veterans of war in a land that offers little mercy. And there, too, is Reynold of Châtillon, lord of Outre-Jourdain, a volatile and dangerous man, but one whose reputation for ferocity is undeniable. Hovering near the center of power is another figure, Odo of Saint-Amand, Grand Master of the Knights Templars. Yet even now, choices must be made. The kingdom cannot defend everything. Gaza lies exposed to the south, a strategic position that cannot be abandoned without consequence. Odo takes the Templars and rides to hold it, peeling away 80 of Baldwin's best warriors. He lets them go. It is a calculated risk, one that further thins an already fragile force. But Baldwin understands the geography of survival. Gaza must be held, or the entire southern frontier collapses. By the time Baldwin reaches Ascalon, his scouts bring grim news. The countryside they pass through already bears Saladin's mark. Towns have been pillaged, supplies taken, roads made uncertain by roaming Ayyubid detachments. The enemy is close, but the full weight of his army is still unclear.
Baldwin knows enough to sense the truth. This is no raid. This is an invasion. By the 22nd or 23rd of November, the vanguard of Saladin's main host comes into view. The weak winter sun hangs low as the two monarchs glimpse one another for the first time. Saladin rides at the head of his army, cape and turban pulled tight against the cold wind, the confidence of a seasoned conqueror evident in his bearing. Before him stretches a force that seems to have no end. As units crest the horizon, their numbers grow, filling the land with movement and dust. From the battlements of Ascalon, Baldwin looks back. His mail is burnished. The blood-red image of the cross is emblazoned upon his tunic. He raises his gloved hand and gives the signal. Jerusalem will march out to meet the enemy. The Crusaders deploy before the walls. 375 knights, roughly 1,000 infantry levied from the city. They form their lines, uncertain of what they face, until the full scale of Saladin's army becomes unmistakable. The horizon darkens with men and horses. What stands before them is not merely larger. It is overwhelming. This army has come to destroy them all. Baldwin does not waste lives for pride. Recognizing the reality of the situation, he orders a withdrawal back into Ascalon. The decision is swift, disciplined, and correct. Saladin presses forward, but not recklessly. He orders his vanguard to surround the city, sealing Baldwin inside. Another detachment is sent south to besiege Odo at Gaza. The trap seems complete. Yet Saladin cannot linger. Having left his heavy baggage behind, he lacks the supplies for a prolonged siege. His campaign depends on momentum. So, after containing Baldwin, he moves north with the bulk of his army, toward Ibelin, toward the bridges that lead deeper into the kingdom. What Saladin does not realize is that Baldwin is already moving. As the Ayyubid army shifts north, Baldwin seizes his moment. He leads a surprise breakout from Ascalon, smashing through the Muslim blocking force left behind. It is not a pitched battle. It is a violent, decisive thrust meant to escape encirclement. It succeeds. Baldwin rides free. With him go his knights, now joined by fresh infantry gathered in the city. Word spreads quickly. Jerusalem itself erupts in panic as news arrives that Saladin marches north unopposed. Many take refuge in the Tower of David, convinced the end is near. But the king is no longer trapped. He gathers what strength he can. Around 450 knights now ride under his banner, along with roughly 1,000 infantry from Ascalon. More join as he moves, though many who answer his call are intercepted and cut down by Saladin's roaming detachments. By the time Baldwin reaches the vicinity of Ibelin, around 2,000 additional fighters have made it through. The king now commands roughly 3,000 men. It is still not enough. Saladin's main force outnumbers him by 3 to 5 times. The Sultan believes the matter nearly settled. He has screened his rear, blocked the cities, and forced the enemy into motion. From Saladin's perspective, the boy king is running. From Baldwin's, he is choosing where to stand. The next decision will decide everything. The news reaches Jerusalem before the armies ever could. Saladin is moving north, not as a rumor, not as a possibility, but as a certainty. Messengers arrive breathless, bearing reports of devastation. Villages stripped bare, fields trampled, roads choked with refugees and fear. The Ayyubid raiding detachments, once scattered, have carved a path through the kingdom like a blade drawn slowly across flesh. Jerusalem begins to understand what this means.
The army that should have stood between the city and annihilation is gone. Its knights are far to the north. Its fleet has vanished across the sea. What remains is a sick king, a fractured realm, and the knowledge that the greatest Muslim army of the age is marching almost unopposed toward the holy city. Panic spreads quickly. The streets grow crowded as citizens abandon outlying districts and press inward. Some flee toward the churches, others toward the citadel. Many gather beneath the looming stone of the Tower of David, seeking refuge in its shadow, convinced that its walls are the last defense between their world and destruction. Fear feeds on imagination. Whispers race through the city faster than truth ever could. Some say Saladin's banners have already been sighted on the horizon. Others insist that the fall of Jerusalem is inevitable, that the cross atop the Temple Mount will soon be torn down, replaced by a symbol of a new dawn for the faithful of Islam. To the people, this is no longer a military campaign. It is an ending. The loss of Jerusalem would not merely be a defeat of arms, it would be a civilizational rupture. The city is the heart of the kingdom, the symbol of Christendom's claim in the Holy Land. Its fall would echo across Europe and the Near East alike. And Saladin knows this. He does not need to storm the walls immediately. The mere threat of his approach is already doing his work for him. The population trembles. The kingdom's leadership strains under pressure. Morale frays with every passing hour. Meanwhile, the road north lies open. Saladin has advanced with purpose, following the arteries that bind the land together. Medieval warfare is dictated not just by courage or numbers, but by geography, and the Sultan understands this well. Rivers are obstacles, bridges are lifelines, roads decide the fate of kingdoms. His forward detachments have already seized key crossings. The bridge over the Ayalan River north of Ramla is in his hands, a vital point for any force moving through the region. Further north, the main road toward Ibelin beckons, offering a direct route deeper into the heart of the kingdom. Nothing substantial remains between Saladin and Jerusalem. Only scattered garrisons, only distance, only time. The terrain favors speed. By leaving his heavy baggage behind, Saladin has sacrificed endurance, but in exchange he has gained momentum. His army flows along the roads, unencumbered, able to pivot and strike before defenders can react. Each river crossed without resistance reinforces the sense that fate itself is clearing the way. From the Sultan's perspective, the campaign is unfolding exactly as planned. Jerusalem is isolated. Its king is exposed. Its defenders are scrambling. And yet, beneath the apparent inevitability, a subtle tension remains. Saladin cannot linger. His limited supplies mean that time, while currently his ally, will eventually turn against him. He must force a decision, either the collapse of resistance or a battle that ends the matter outright. The longer he advances without conclusion, the more risk creeps in from the edges. Local resistance, hostile terrain, the possibility, however remote, that Baldwin might still find a way to strike. Inside Jerusalem, few believe that possibility remains. The bells continue to toll. They toll for the absent army, for the abandoned alliance, for a kingdom that feels already lost. What the people do not see
is that Baldwin is not retreating toward Jerusalem.
He is moving deliberately, along roads his enemies do not yet understand, toward ground that has not yet chosen its master. While the city braces for siege, the king rides elsewhere, drawing Saladin onward, away from the walls, and toward a place where numbers alone may not decide the outcome. For now, however, Jerusalem waits. Each hour stretches longer than the last. Every rider approaching the gates might carry news of salvation or of doom. The cross still stands on the Temple Mount, but no one knows for how long. The kingdom holds its breath. By the morning of November 24th, 1177, the campaign reaches its point of no return. Muslim scouts ride hard ahead of Saladin's column, scanning the roads, the hills, the river crossings. It is they who first bring the news that sharpens the Sultan's focus. Baldwin is nearby, not behind walls. Not retreating toward Jerusalem, but moving, banner visible, force intact. The king of Jerusalem is within reach. To Saladin, this confirms what he already believes. The Crusaders are gathering what men they can, but they are too late. Their numbers remain small, their cohesion fragile. If they are intercepted now, before they can recruit more troops, the matter can be settled in a single decisive blow. The Sultan orders pursuit. Yet something unexpected happens. The Crusader column changes direction. Instead of moving directly toward Ramla, where Saladin's main body advances, Baldwin's force veers away, marching hastily along what appears to be a minor, deserted path. To Saladin's officers, this looks like confirmation of weakness. The enemy is avoiding battle. The assumption is logical. Baldwin's army is outnumbered 3 to 5 times over. Any sensible commander would seek to delay, to escape, to buy time. From Saladin's vantage point, the Crusaders are behaving exactly as they should. So he follows. What Saladin does not know is that this path is not deserted. It belongs to Baldwin. The land through which the Crusaders now move lies under the lordship of Baldwin II of Ramla and his brother Balian of Ibelin, men who know every contour of the terrain, every stream bed, every rise and hollow. This is their country, shaped by seasons, weather, and war. They have chosen this route deliberately. Ahead lies the Gezer stream, swollen by the rains of November. North of it, plowed fields stretch across low ground, fields that in this season are soaked through and treacherous. Mud clings to hooves, wheels bog down, formations break apart. Beyond the stream rises a ridge. From its crest, the land falls away into a shallow valley, open enough for movement, yet constrained by the ground itself. It is here, near the small settlement of Montgisard, that Baldwin and his captains intend to stand. The decision is not reckless, it is calculated. Baldwin understands the balance of risk. If he continues to retreat, Saladin's army will grow bolder. Raiding detachments will tighten their grip. Supplies will dwindle. Jerusalem will fall without a fight. If Baldwin engages on open ground, the Sultan's superior numbers in cavalry will envelop and destroy him. But here the numbers mean less. The muddy ground north of the stream will blunt cavalry maneuvers. The ridge constrains movement, forcing Saladin's army to compress as it crosses. If the Ayyubids pursue aggressively, their formations will stretch and pile up, losing cohesion at the very moment they need it most. There is another advantage.
If Baldwin is defeated here, escape is possible. The same path that led them west can carry survivors east, into the hills, toward Jerusalem. This is not a last stand born of desperation. It is a gamble designed to preserve options. Reynold of Chatillon agrees. So do the lords of Ibelin and Ramla. Every man present understands the stakes. Victory would save the kingdom. Defeat would likely doom it. But delay guarantees ruin. Baldwin commits. As Saladin approaches the Gezer stream, the Crusader army vanishes from view. From the Sultan's perspective, they are at least 3 miles to the east, out of sight, out of immediate threat. There is no sign of ambush at the crossing. No hostile force blocks the ford. Confident, Saladin orders the advance to continue. His army begins crossing the stream. The movement is orderly but constrained. The ground is soggy. The ravine forces units to slow, to bunch together. Wagons and carriages, few but present, clog the approaches. Cavalry must pick their way across carefully, breaking formation as they do so. Time stretches. By noon, roughly 9,000 of Saladin's troops have crossed to the eastern side. Others continue to funnel through behind them. The Sultan urges speed, keen to close the distance before Baldwin can slip away again. Then he reaches the ridge. From its crest, Saladin looks down and sees the truth. The Crusaders are not retreating. They are waiting. Below him, in the valley beyond, Baldwin's army stands in formation. Knights massed at the front, infantry drawn up behind them, standards planted firmly in the earth. At most, Baldwin commands 500 heavy knights, men trained from childhood for shock combat, armored, disciplined, resolute. Behind them stand roughly 2,500 infantry, gathered in the desperate days of the march.
They are outnumbered, but they are ready. Saladin understands the danger immediately. His army is divided by the stream. His formations are still forming. His cavalry wings, essential for enveloping a heavy cavalry charge, are not yet positioned. The terrain he assumed would favor pursuit now threatens to trap him in disorder. He orders his officers to form up at once. Mounted archers begin to move. Heavier squadrons shift into place. The Sultan's intent is clear. Absorb the initial Crusader charge, then let his superior numbers flow around the flanks and crush the enemy from the sides and rear. It is sound doctrine, but doctrine requires time, and time is the one thing Baldwin will not grant him. The young king surveys the field and understands what he sees. Every moment Saladin spends organizing strengthens the Ayyubid position. Every delay reduces the Crusaders' slim chance of success. This is the instant. Baldwin does not wait. He urges his horse forward. Those who ride with him later say he seems animated by something beyond himself, finding strength where none should remain. He rides at the head of his knights, compelling them not with words, but with presence.
The signal is given. The Crusader line begins to move. What follows will decide the fate of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, not through numbers, not through siege, but through a single violent collision of will, steel, and ground chosen with ruthless precision. Two armies face one another across the valley near Montgisard. On the ridge stand the forces of Saladin, thousands of men still forming, units strung out by the crossing, commanders shouting orders as cavalry companies struggle to find their place. Mounted archers shift into position, heavy squadrons try to align. The army is vast, but not yet whole. Below them waits Baldwin. The Crusader line is compact, deliberate, unforgivingly simple. At its front mass the heavy knights, armored men and horses forged into instruments of shock. Behind them stand the infantry, dense and resolute, shields braced, spears ready. The Templars hold the center, iron discipline anchoring the line. This is not a defensive posture. It is an intention. Baldwin understands the moment with absolute clarity. If Saladin completes his deployment, the Crusaders will be enveloped and destroyed. The Ayyubid wings will flow around them, arrows will bleed their momentum away, and numbers will finish what attrition begins. There is only one chance. Strike now, strike hard, strike before the enemy becomes an army. Baldwin gives the order. The Crusader cavalry surges forward. The charge begins at a controlled pace, hooves biting into the soft ground, lances held steady, banners snapping in the wind. Then the pace quickens, the line descends the slope and drives forward with growing speed, the thunder of impact building with every heartbeat. Saladin's mounted archers react instantly. A hail of missiles fills the air. Arrows fall like rain upon the charging knights, but armor does what it was made to do. Mail rings, and shields turn aside the vast majority of the shots. Horses press on, men do not slow. The distance closes too fast for missile fire alone to stop them. Saladin's elite bodyguards in their yellow tunics close ranks around him as the shockwave approaches. The ground trembles. The Crusader charge smashes into the Ayyubid line with devastating force. Lances splinter. Men are hurled backward as if struck by a physical wall. The cohesion of Saladin's front ranks collapses under the sheer kinetic violence of the impact. Knights punch deep into the formation, breaking through before the Muslim cavalry can fully respond. Swords are drawn. Close combat erupts. The advantage of numbers vanishes in the chaos. The Ayyubid formations, still half-formed and compressed by the terrain, cannot absorb the blow. Saladin's officers shout orders, trying to restore control, trying to bring the cavalry wings around for the flanking maneuver that doctrine demands. But something unexpected happens. The flanks do not move. Behind the charging knights, the Latin infantry arrives in perfect time. They advance steadily, methodically, locking the fight in place. Spears thrust, shields push. The supporting foot soldiers deny the Ayyubid cavalry the space it needs to envelop the Crusader line. What should have been a brief moment of contact becomes a grinding, murderous press. For Saladin, the danger becomes immediate. The Crusader charge does not stall, it deepens. The Templars, disciplined and relentless, burst through the Sultan's guard line. For a brief, astonishing instant, Saladin himself is exposed. His bodyguards scramble, abandoning their own fights to close the gap. A single knight, his face hidden behind a steel visor, spurs his horse straight toward the Sultan. Saladin raises his weapon. He is ready to meet death. 3 of his bodyguards throw themselves into the path of the charging knight, wrenching the horse aside, breaking the momentum just in time. The Sultan is seized and pulled backward through the press, away from the collapsing front. It is the closest he has come to capture or death in his career. Saladin rallies what forces he can. He orders a countercharge, hoping to push the Crusaders back and restore space for maneuver. Cavalry units surge forward, crashing into the tightly packed Latin host. For the first time, the Crusader momentum slows. The fighting becomes savage. Men hack and thrust at arm's length. Horses rear and fall. The noise is deafening. Steel on steel. Men crying out. Commanders shouting orders no one can hear. For a moment, it seems the battle may yet turn. Saladin orders another charge, then another.
Each one fails. The Crusader army is too compact. Knights and infantry fight as a single body, supporting one another without gap or hesitation. Where cavalry presses, infantry holds. Where knights falter, foot soldiers brace them. The cohesion that Saladin's army lacks is the very thing that sustains Baldwin's.
A desultory feeling spreads among the Ayyubid ranks. This was not meant to happen. The Sultan's army, so confident, so numerous, begins to lose its nerve. Units pull back without orders, commands go unheard. Momentum shifts, not gradually, but violently. Baldwin senses it. He commits everything. The Crusaders charge again. This time, the Ayyubid line shatters. Men break and flee. Formations dissolve into panic. The retreat surges back toward the Gezer stream, toward the very crossing that had constrained the army hours before. Wagons and carriages clog the ford, horses slip in the mud, soldiers collide in desperate confusion. The river becomes a killing ground. Pressed from behind, Ayyubid troops are cut down or trampled as they try to escape. What had been an organized army moments earlier collapses into a mass of fugitives, each man fighting now only for his own survival. Saladin is swept away in the rout, barely escaping with his life. His once cohesive host splinters into scattered groups, fleeing across a countryside that no longer belongs to them. Against all expectation, against numbers, experience, and reputation, the army of the teenage king has won. The charge that should not have worked has worked. The field of Montgisard is littered with the wreckage of an empire's ambition. The battle ends as suddenly as it began. Where hours before two armies collided in thunder and steel, there is now only silence, broken by the cries of the wounded and the distant movement of men gathering what remains. The field of Montgisard bears witness to a truth few believed possible that morning. The kingdom of Jerusalem has survived, not through numbers, not through strength, but through decision. In the aftermath, exact casualty figures remain uncertain. Chroniclers speak in extremes, some claiming near total annihilation of Saladin's army, others offering more measured accounts. What matters is not the number, but the effect. The Ayyubid host has been shattered, its cohesion destroyed, its campaign brought to a catastrophic halt. Saladin himself escapes, but only just. His retreat is harried relentlessly. As his army splinters into scattered groups, the countryside at once terrorized turns against it. Latin forces and Bedouin clans descend upon the fleeing remnants, exacting revenge with brutal efficiency. The invasion that was meant to end the kingdom of Jerusalem instead leaves Saladin scrambling to preserve what remains of his power. Messengers race south to Cairo. Their words are carefully chosen. They announce victory. They assure the court that the Sultan lives and will soon return. But those skilled in the language of power understand the message hidden beneath the surface. A disaster has occurred. Saladin does eventually return, wounded in reputation but not in resolve. He sets about rebuilding his army, reasserting his authority, and restoring confidence among his followers. Montgisard is a humiliation, but not a death blow. His ambition survives intact, tempered now by experience. This defeat will shape him. It teaches caution where once there was confidence. It reminds him that even overwhelming power can fail when it misjudges terrain, timing, and the will of an enemy. In time, Saladin will learn from Montgisard, and history will feel the weight of that lesson. For Baldwin IV, the meaning of the victory is different. He does not chase glory. He does not claim conquest. Instead, he marks the moment with stone and prayer.
Baldwin commissions a monastery to be built on the site of the battle, a lasting testament to what he believes delivered victory.
To contemporaries, the symbolism is unmistakable. A dying boy king has stood against the greatest commander of the age and prevailed. Baldwin's reputation spreads quickly. Across Christendom, his name becomes a symbol of improbable resistance, not because he was strong, but because he endured. Not because he was healthy, but because he refused to yield. His body continues to fail him. His disease does not relent. Montgisard does not cure Baldwin IV, but it secures his place in history. The victory does not save the kingdom of Jerusalem forever. It does not end the Crusades. It does not halt the long struggle between Latin and Muslim powers in the Levant. What it does is buy time. Time for Jerusalem to breathe, time for Saladin to reassess, time for history to turn. Montgisard stands as a reminder that outcomes are not determined solely by strength. Knowledge of terrain, unity of command, preparation under pressure, the willingness to act decisively when hesitation guarantees defeat. These are the forces that shaped the afternoon. Baldwin and his captains understood something fundamental, that war is not an abstract contest of numbers, but a human endeavor, one shaped by fear, resolve, and the choices made in moments when there is no margin for error. Knowledge in that moment was power. Not book knowledge, not prophecy, but the intimate understanding of land, timing, and human limits. And hard work mattered. The discipline of the knights who held formation, the coordination between cavalry and infantry, the preparation that allowed a crippled king to ride at the head of a charge. Unity mattered. Without it, Baldwin's army would have shattered at first contact. Without it, Saladin's numerical advantage should have crushed them. Instead, unity turned fragility into strength and momentum into victory. In the years that follow, chroniclers will debate Montgisard endlessly. They will argue over numbers, over miracles, over exaggeration. Some will see divine intervention, others will see luck. But beneath every interpretation lies an undeniable fact. For a single afternoon, the balance of power in the Holy Land was overturned, not by destiny, but by decision. Baldwin IV will not live long enough to see the final outcome of the struggle he shaped. Saladin will rise again, stronger and wiser for his defeat. The war will continue, as wars always do. Yet Montgisard endures, as a moment when leadership mattered more than longevity, when preparation outweighed advantage, when understanding history, its land, its people, its limits, proved more powerful than raw force. It is for this reason that Montgisard still commands respect, not as a fairy tale, not as a miracle, but as a lesson written in blood, mud, and resolve.
It is August 1177. Under the burning sky of the eastern Mediterranean, the harbor of Acre stirs with movement. Ships crowd the water, standards snap in the wind, armor glints, and among the stone towers and shaded colonnades of the city, the kingdom of Jerusalem gathers its strength, perhaps for the last time. Philip of Alsace has arrived. The Count of Flanders steps onto the quay not as a conqueror, but as a man of immense consequence. He is cousin to the King of Jerusalem, a veteran noble of the Latin West, and, crucially, he has come with expectations. Offshore, the sea itself seems to promise victory. Anchored just beyond the harbor lies an armada of more than 150 galleys from the East Roman Empire, their hulls riding the blue like an iron horizon. This fleet has a purpose. Together with the army of Jerusalem, it is meant to carry Christendom south, across the Sinai, into Egypt. The prize is immense. Egypt is the economic heart of Saladin's power, the foundation of his armies, the key to breaking Muslim dominance in the region. A successful strike there would change the balance of the Crusades overnight. The greatest campaign since the First Crusade waits only for unity. But unity does not come. Inside the palace at Jerusalem, the reality is far less triumphant. The king who should be leading this endeavor is 16 years old and dying. Baldwin IV of Jerusalem is already infamous throughout the Near East. His leprosy, once a whispered concern, is now undeniable. His right arm is crippled. His body is racked not only by the disease that will eventually kill him, but also by recurring malarial fever. Even so, Baldwin still rules. He still commands, and for now, his mind remains sharp. Yet his condition raises a question no one can avoid. Who will rule when he no longer can?